Good evening. Welcome to the Finance Committee. This is March 16th, 2020. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being operated as a hybrid model under Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, 1-786-535-3211 and access code 991-599-357, or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com/join/991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. As a preliminary matter, this is Ann Kavanaugh, Chair of the committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda participating remotely are present and can hear me. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Kevin Kennedy.
Here.
Edward Coleman.
Here.
Michael Marshall.
Here.
Patrick Jones.
Here.
And Diane Byrne.
Here.
Thank you. Town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond to the affirmative. Town Manager Julie Jacobson. Here. CFO/Assistant Town Manager Ed Kazanovich.
Here.
And Administrative Assistant Sharon Kwiatkowski.
Here.
Thank you. So please note that this meeting is being recorded by Auburn Cable Television. Also, please note that each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by a roll call vote. All right, so tonight's agenda, the first thing we're going to look at is review and vote on fiscal 2023 budgets, operating and capital. Tonight we'll be looking at the police department, fire rescue department, and emergency management. There are no transfer requests at this time and minutes, so we don't have to vote on any of those. So tonight, the police department can present their budget. We have Provisional Chief Lemon here and Provisional Lieutenant Scott Mills. Thank you.
We'll sit right there.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I don't know if you've had an opportunity to read through.
We
some of
have.
that
Do you have any
document.
comments you want to start with before we look at it?
I
or-
do.
Okay.
I'd like
that
to
would be
say,
great.
first of all, I'm honored to be here.
Oh, thank you.
I've have many years of service in the police department, and if you asked me a year ago if this is where I'd be sitting tonight, I would have said no. It would probably be somewhere near my Cape Cod property, but I'm very honored to be here. I have more than 34 years of service in the police department. The gentleman that's sitting to my left, Scott Mills, who I made provisional lieutenant, I think I just kind of want to walk everybody through what happened. Well, I got contacted by the former chief of police and the town manager that he was leaving, and he was leaving within a couple of weeks. And within a very short time period, we had Chief Lucas retire, we had Lieutenant Harrigan retire, and just prior to that, we had another member of the command staff, Sergeant LaFlash, retire. The chief retired on January 31st. I was sworn in as provisional chief on the 1st. I needed to have a 2OIC that could deal with the financial matters for the town, so I immediately promoted the senior sergeant, Scott Mills, to provisional lieutenant that day, and Scott has certainly stepped into his role. So it's been a whirlwind of learning systems and finances that we were somewhat unfamiliar with, and the CFO, the town manager, has been great, Tom Zadelis, walking us through this process. So the FY 2023 budget that was submitted reflects a 1.3% increase over the previous year. The major change to that was something that I requested at our first budget meeting. It had been a topic of discussion for several years throughout the department was to, I asked for a deputy chief, police chief's position that would be out of the union, looking for a 2OIC. And I can hit some of the highlights on the document. Some of the major reasons in my vision for the department, and I know it's Lieutenant Mills's vision for the department, is to realign the administrative roles of the command staff. Most importantly, to get my sergeants, my supervisors back out on the road. They have undertaken, myself included through my career, we've always said that they've probably worked one rank above their pay scale because of the amount of administrative responsibilities that they've had. And we'd like to kind of take some of those away, not take all of them away, but take some of them away and have the two lieutenants oversee those, and the deputy police chief's position, being out of the union, can deal with the serious personnel matters that we have, and that have it not be a conflict. I had been put in that position over my career where I had to deal with disciplinary or employee matters. Thankfully, we don't have many on our police department. But to describe the position when you're dealing with an employee matter and discipline, I was essentially sitting across the table from the attorney representing that employee that would also represent me at the time. So it's a bit of a conflict and it's uncomfortable. And as you can see, that the duties and the responsibilities that I have laid out for the deputy police chief's position is critical. There's many towns of our department size and larger and some smaller have that 2OIC position that's out of the union. And there are departments such as the fire department, Deputy Fire Chief Johnson assumes that role with the fire department. To touch on the actual budget itself, with the departure of Chiefs Lucas, Lieutenant Harrigan, and Sergeant LaFlash, the department had some contractual obligations for payouts, and that was a fairly significant hit to our budget, almost $70,000. So we're working with the CFO and the town manager and Mr. Zadelis to work us through these financial issues as we navigate through this learning curve for us for the finances.
Yes, Mr. Jacobs, thank you. Yep.
Thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to step in also and say that, first of all, I thank Provisional Chief Lemon and Provisional Lieutenant Mills for all the work that they've done on this budget. They really had to step into it quickly and adjust very quickly, and they've done a tremendous job. And I also want to say that the position of deputy chief is something that Ed and I have been talking about for several years. And it had always been our vision that when the current, now former chief retired, that we would take a look and restructure the department to include a deputy chief position. So this is something that I really feel strongly about, and I know Ed does also. We've seen over the years some of the complications by not having a deputy chief position. I've done a lot of research myself and looked at other communities across the Commonwealth that have deputy chiefs, and quite honestly, there were more that seem to have them that don't have them. And as the chief just said, there are small communities and there are large communities. And I would say that the call volume that we have here is more. I think the thing that really is pushing us to do this even more quickly are the new post requirements. And because of that, we are going to be required, or the police department is going to be required to be doing a lot more investigations. And as Chief Lemon just mentioned to you, that is complicated when you have someone doing the investigations that is actually in the same collective bargaining unit as the person you're investigating. It's not only that, but it's, if you look at the plan that he put together, and again, this is something we've all been talking about for a long time. If you look at realigning the duties within the department of the lieutenants and the sergeants, this actually puts more coverage on the streets of Auburn, because it allows the sergeants to go out more frequently and actually oversee and manage the patrol, as opposed to handling administrative tasks that can now be pushed up to the lieutenants, and the lieutenants can push up some of their tasks to the deputy chief. So I just wanted to step in here and just say that I understand we are in the situation right now with a provisional chief and a provisional lieutenant. We do have an assessment center coming up in April, and we hope that that assessment center should be done. We should be able to move forward on more permanent appointments. We're hoping in early to mid-May, based on the civil service schedule that we've been given. But I would tell you, regardless of the person that will be in the chief's position, this position here is really critical. This has been a priority of ours, and we're strongly advocating for it and happy to answer any questions, because I don't want to put the provisional chief or provisional lieutenant in an awkward position, knowing they've only been in this position for a few weeks. But I also believe that they would tell you that other members of the department are also very supportive of this. And I think that's important. We're not trying to create something that the rest of the department doesn't want. We're creating something that I think the rest of the department really sees a critical need for. So anyway, thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Mrs. Jacobson, thank you. Any questions? All right,
Yeah, certainly, so relative to the salary that's listed here before, so obviously that's not the full salary. And I guess, I think in discussions in the years, because I know you've discussed this position previously, was, I think it was always taking one of the lieutenants out of, and now we're sort of creating a second lieutenant. One lieutenant, correct me if I'm wrong, currently sits, one handles operations, one handles administration. Is that sort of how it's divided?
Would you like me to? Sure. If I may, just, so as you pointed out, the position is funded, it's a 6-month, so that's half of what the actual full annual salary would be. Obviously, that was to minimize some impact to the budget starting off. But as far as the reorganizational aspect of things, it would basically allow us to have the deputy chief oversee the administrative functions. One of the lieutenants would oversee the operations of the department, patrol operations and affiliated tasks with that. And then the second lieutenant, but the third position would be for services, investigative services and special services. So they would oversee all the investigative services, which would include also, hopefully down the road, K-9. We're reinstituting the school resource program, and crash reconstruction is one of those. And it gives it a more equal distribution of administrative tasks and responsibility, and it clears up who's reporting to whom and what the responsibilities are of those people, and it clears up the communication chain as well. So to me, it's a commonsensical reorganization of how things should be.
We have sergeants, that are grant writers for the department and for the town. We have sergeants that are dealing with the schedule. We have sergeants that are dealing with details and detail oversight. And all these responsibilities are keeping the sergeants from being on the road. And times have changed. Across the Commonwealth and across the country, bad guys aren't stopping. We're having multiple pursuits per week. And for liability reasons alone, I want the sergeants focused on being supervisors and working with their troops and showing up on scene and managing scenes and being able to be attentive to the radio and in the interests of public safety and again, in many ways, liability for the town. So the lieutenants, we discussed this at the budget meeting, and I wouldn't be gaining much by having a deputy chief and losing one of the lieutenant's positions, and that's why I asked for that, because I can put the lieutenants working to deal with the mundane administrative responsibilities that come in on a day-to-day basis, whether it's a complaint, whether it's or dealing with the more administrative matters, and which will give the sergeants the opportunity to have roll call and deal with whatever matters they need to deal with and go out on the road and be supervisors.
Yes, and just, Madam Chair, just one additional, is, Chief, I appreciate, the document here, and I think it explains things very well. you know, you've mentioned this is your vision, and the department's in a sort of an unusual time right now with two provisional, commanders, basically, and I wish,
I had to promote, so that's a great point, I had to promote Officer Caperonis to sergeant because the way our schedule works, we work a 4x4 schedule. That's not the only reason that I promoted him. He's an awesome sergeant and a great leader. But the only way that schedule would work, you need six people to do it. And he was a great promotion. And I can tell you that I can't speak for everyone, but it's of my opinion, based on the feedback that I've heard, the department fully supports this measure. To give you a little bit of, we historically have never been here as a police department. What do I mean by that? We had 3 senior members of the command staff retire like that. We have never had testing for multiple supervisory positions. Usually it's 1 or 2 or an officer, but we've never had potentially a test for chief, deputy chief, lieutenant, and sergeants. So there's a lot of energy in the department. The boots are a little shinier, and there seems to be some good energy in the department, and it's something that I've actually enjoyed watching, and I really surmise that the entire department is behind this position.
because it is a little bit of an unusual time that, you know, potentially, I don't know how many people are going for each of the respective assessment centers, and I wish you both, you know, best of luck and participation in those endeavors. But you potentially we could have someone different in those different roles before us come May or June. So just hearing that you say that it's, you know, sort of the vision, again, we've heard about deputy chief positions for a while, and, you know, timing-wise, not probably ideal, because I think you would want whoever gets the permanent spot, you know, and again, wish you certainly best of luck. We've known each other for a long time, and professionally and personally, but, you know, that person who's got that long-standing position would be able to come in with their own perspective, and they will on, I'm sure, a variety of other issues, and I'm sure there's other stuff that you want to bring forward. And just for the rest of the committee, I know what POST stands for. Can you just explain what POST is? I know Ms. Jacobson mentioned POST in there.
It's Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission, or Post-C, which sprang forth as a result of, you know, it's police reform, essentially, and most of it was much needed and had been called for by the Massachusetts Police and other agencies for at least 10 years, going back to the President's Task Force report on policing, some of the changes that they're mandating, having a licensing or certification of police officers, and mandating certain trainings, whether it's bias elimination or active bystandership for law enforcement people. All great changes, quite honestly. Just a quick answer, Kevin, to your question or to your statement. The vision of this vision was shared at the command staff, the most recent command staff meeting. So everyone's aware, you know, the sergeants and lieutenant, I guess just lieutenant 1, are all aware of what's going on. And that funnels down, you know, trickles down through the police department. And we welcome any comments that anybody has, and always open doors, and we haven't heard no one has said, geez, that's a rotten idea, and this is, you know, so we think we're on the right track for sure, and I think regardless of who ends up in the seats, I think that's the way that they would want to proceed.
Just one more comment on your question, Kevin. So we are one of the remaining departments in Massachusetts that still falls under civil service. And civil service historically dealt with testing, promotions, and discipline. As of last fall, civil service no longer deals with discipline. Governor Baker formulated the post commission, and they're still not 100% in order, but they are soon to be, and on all their regulations will soon be laws of the Commonwealth. So, civil service will just deal with hirings, but no more disciplinary issues. We were one of the few states in the country that didn't have a certification process. That's why, I can't speak for the governor, but it was really a no-brainer for him. So basically, if you're a police officer, you have to meet certain requirements under the law, trainings, in-service, CPR, certain trainings that the post commission requires. And if you don't meet those requirements, they can actually take away your certification. They can actually take away your certification so you couldn't go become a police officer in another state. And that's in essence how that works.
And actually, to that certification, most of the municipalities in Massachusetts, there's like 90 or 100 are well certified, but they pay officers to keep that certification up. It's a task to keep meeting that accreditation.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Jacobson?
Yeah, if I may also, through the chair, to Mr. Kennedy, you raise a great point, and that is one of the reasons that I wanted to come tonight. I just wanted to assure the Finance Committee that the next chief that I appoint, falls under the town manager, under the charter, with a confirmation from the Board of Selectmen, that the next chief that I appoint, I had every intention of appointing a chief that wanted a deputy chief. I've seen some of the issues. I've talked about it with the recently retired chief, and he had agreed with me that it was something that we had to do in the near future, and that near future came pretty quickly, especially with post. And then when our own department, we had all those retirements literally within 7 days. It was pretty difficult. So I'm here to just say the process has not yet started on the assessment center, and that will go through an entire process, and regardless of who's in either of these positions, this is a priority for me as the appointing authority. I've spoken to Labor Council about it. I see the issues that we're going to have if we don't do this. And again, I've gone to a number of conferences. I've taken part in many of the police type workshops, because I knew down the road that the former chief was going to be retiring soon. So I wanted to see what were the models that were out there that we should be looking at when we do start a new administration. And clearly, this is one of them. There were some other things too, and we have a strong chief. I don't oversee the operations, but I certainly can bring back ideas and share them with the past chief and the current chief and any future chiefs, that, there are some best practices in the country right now for policing, and things have drastically changed in the last couple of years, and I think we need to bring ourselves into that system. So I just want to assure you that this is a vision that we had also. This is something we've been working forward. We've really I think we've done our homework on this. And we know that this is something that the department needs. And I think all departments at a certain level need it also. And I will tell you, there are a number of communities in our area that are a quarter of the size of us, and they have a deputy chief. We're changing the way assignments are made. And I think, as they explained it much better than I do, just shifting some of the responsibilities from the sergeants to the lieutenants, from the lieutenants to the deputy chief, is going to make a difference, having more feet on the ground in the town. And I think in a community like this, that's really critical. We unfortunately, more and more need to have more people out there on the road. So I just wanted you to know that I share your concerns, Mr. Kennedy, about not making a decision now. It should be the next chief. And that's why I would tell you this position's not starting until January, because we're going to make that appointment hopefully in May, June at the latest, and this gives the permanent chief the opportunity to put together finalized job descriptions, finalize everything, and in 6 months from now, go out and get that person in the role. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Jacobson. Okay, well, let's look at the budget. Yes, did anyone have any questions? Okay.
No, I just wanted to sort of echo from a planning perspective, is you don't want to react too quick. We're in budget season. We need something for the warrant. These gentlemen are sitting in the seat at the time that took place. And I would think that in the hiring process, the people coming forward could work with that and then put there, because by the time they get settled, they wouldn't even in a hiring process be able to implement an immediate plan. They, you don't want to react, you want to respond. And so I think they'd want to get their feet wet and stay moving for about a year before they really fiddled with anything that's already been put in place for this coming year.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so looking at the budget, I'll just read the numbers and then we'll go through the lines and see if anyone has any question. The fiscal 2022 appropriation for the police is $5,080,225. The request for this year is, let's get the wrong year. So the fiscal 2022 is $5,015,022, and the fiscal 2023 request is $5,080,225. That's a 1.3% increase to the year we're in now, and a dollar increase of $65,203. So let's go through the departments, okay, and let's see if we have any questions. How about on the first department, chief, deputy chief, salaries, the maintenance, dispatchers, communication? Any questions? All right, looking at, yes, you do. Go ahead, Michael.
What is the projection that salary would be over a full year, since as we said that this approximately like 75 that's on the budget now probably isn't the full salary.
Mm-hmm. Is that a half year that's on here?
That is a
25?
Excuse me, yes, that's for a half year from January till June.
Okay,
The full year would be $147,000, a tiny bit over,
okay,
147, which puts it between, slotted between where the chief's salary currently is and where the lieutenants currently are as
Okay.
well. It's
So that's
more or less,
about a split of
it's
the-
equally, yes.
Is that the fourth line down, deputy chief salary?
mm-hmm,
So if it's at 56, twice that is 112. How did
Add
we
on.
come up with 147?
add on the other two.
Plus the holiday.
Oh,
and
so you're actually taking the whole, everything in
Right.
there? Okay, got it.
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question about Quinn. So, new officers, when they're hired, don't participate in the Quinn anymore, correct? Right, because
Correct.
it's gone away. But if you've been in it, it carries with you even if you go to another position?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Your grandfathered?
Grandfathered, okay, thank you. All right. Let's see, looking at the next line, we have some administration. I do have a question about the,
Ian, can I ask a question on Quinn?
yes, sure, go ahead.
The Quinn line, is that low
For,
for the deputy chief's
I
position?
think it's a half year.
Right, but even in a half year,
it's for, it ends up being, it's 400, it's like $400 a week, approximately,
that's what, 20% of, or 25% of,
25, yeah.
of 6110, is that 25? And we get like, shouldn't that be significantly more?
You say it's understated? Oh,
Yeah, the Quinn and the holiday are reversed. Yeah,
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I provided the. Yes, sorry, it's,
all right, so those two numbers will get switched, okay. Question? All right, looking to the second part of the budget here, I have a question about the, line for the, building and ground repairs. I know that this year there have been some issues with the building and repairs have been made, and, you've come and requested transfers. Will that be enough?
It's hard to say with that building. I know the finance committee is fully aware of how our HVAC system has dogged us. We've spent a tremendous amount of money from year to year for many years on that HVAC system. I know that from previous meetings that the town is potentially looking at using some of the ARPA funds to maybe supplant or maybe even replace our HVAC system. And so I'm really not sure if it's enough.
Mr. Casanova?
Madam Chair, relative to, and certainly I think the chief has indicated that the HVAC issues at the police department have been an ongoing issue. We do have before the board, and it's still open for consideration, determination to be made in the coming months, a value of about $1.2 million, estimated value, to do some upgrades to several of our public buildings for HVAC. So that federal funding does give us an opportunity to address that. If not, we've built $450,000 in the 5-year CIP in the event that the ARPA funds are not considered for such purpose. So we've made plans to address that, not only in the short term, but in the long term. So hopefully that money will be in place that will take the squeeze off the operational side of the budget.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kazanovich. Okay, any questions? Michael, Diane, do you have any questions?
The only question I have is with regard to the current inflation, and it looks to me like some of the expense lines are kind of being budgeted exactly at what they are for 22. So was there any sort of consideration in the numbers for fiscal 23 with regard to inflation being over 5%?
Okay, Mr. Kazanovich will respond to that.
Through the chair, Diane, that's a great question. The utility costs are appropriated under our general services department. They were removed from various departments because of we wanted to maintain a collective history on utility accounts. Those costs were increased in general services in anticipation of escalating costs, not to the extent that they are now, because certainly when we put the budget together, motor vehicle fuel and heating oil was not running at $5, close to $5 a gallon. So as part of our budget kickoff, I think we identified that as a priority, and we did increase those costs, but we may have to revisit that either when we address general services, or we may have to do a correction in the fall and wait and see if these costs maintain present level, or they reduce, or if they go up. So certainly it is a volatile item. We're not certain where those costs are going to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kazanovich. Any other questions on the front page? Okay, we're looking at the next page. That the top first boxes has lieutenant sergeants, patrolman, overtime, longevity, court time. I have a couple of questions. First is, how many officers are there currently at the in the police department? 40, and that includes command staff?
Yes.
Okay, and how many positions are open?
So right now, we've just given conditional offers of employment to 3 recruits that should be starting the academy in July, the end of July. And once those positions, so their start date is 6 months probably after that. Once all these promotions are made, we will have 2 more positions open. Correct?
2 more patrol positions?
2 more patrol positions. So, depending on how this all works out with the testing and who tests, potentially, so a person moving into the chief's position out of the command staff, a person moving into the deputy chief's position out of the command staff, potentially 2 new lieutenants promoted out of the group of sergeants, and the multiple offices that I hear that are testing for the sergeant's position.
Okay, thank you. That's great. So 40 officers doesn't include the open positions, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so once those recruits get through the academy and start, there'll be 43 employees.
No, there'll be 42, 3 with the academy are in the 40.
I
And then
thought there
there's
was
2, I think
two.
it's 42.
I thought 3 in the academy.
So we have a total
Well,
of
they have-
40. We have 3 that haven't even started the academy yet, that have the conditional offers that we were down. That was going to bring us to full complement prior to the departure of Chief Slucas and
Right.
Lieutenant Harrigan. Those were the 2 vacant positions.
Right.
So once all the promotions are made, we'll be at 38, and we'll have 2 more open patrolman positions.
Okay, so the 40 is,
We're still budgeted for that same number. We'll just have 2 openings.
yep,
at the
that's what
bottom,
you have. Okay, thank you.
as people will promote up.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? I have a question about court time. I see that it's being funded at $55,000, so it's back up to the level it was last seen in fiscal 19. And do you expect that the officers will be going to court again on a regular basis like they used to?
That's a great question, because we've seen it, and it's starting. The restrictions have been lessened at the courthouses. They're having trials now, in-person jury trials in both districts and Superior Court. The only thing that I see that's changed, but it really doesn't affect the bottom line with the budget, because it's our court officers, our court officers for civil traffic violations. It appears that they're going to remain virtual.
Okay,
But the officers are receiving summonses for both district and Superior Court in the area and Worcester District Court, so we anticipate that that's going to ramp back up.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Michael or Diane, do you have any questions?
I do. I have one other question, and this is just me being new. Where would we see the budget for any sort of police details?
Sorry,
Police details.
A budget for the police.
that's paid out of a revolving account that.
Yeah.
Right, that the only issue with police details would be, it's a contractual issue as to what the rate is, but it's paid out of a revolving account through the town, not us.
Okay, and Mr.
Not out
Cas,
of our budget.
I understand. Mr. Cavanaugh, would you want to explain how that works?
Sure. So police details are requested as a result of paving or any other utility job that may be on the side of the road or within the street. As a result of that, the officers are paid a contractual wage based upon the detail and based upon the length of time. As a result of that, we treat that outside of the general fund in what we call an agency account. That agency account basically fronts the money. We bill the vendor when the payroll is paid. The vendor pays us for the service that we pay the officer. So it really neutralizes, the expense is neutralized by the revenue coming in.
Thank you. And it doesn't show up on this budget at all? It's a separate, okay.
No, it does not.
I have a question before he leaves. On the agency account, is there a receivable listing for that? Or is it administered by financial management, or who oversees because if it's an agency account, it technically shouldn't be in the negative, but if you're paying out officers and you're still collecting against the individuals that are using you, is there ever a negative?
So if you look at the actual, there are two parts to the agency account. There's the receivable offset by deferred revenue.
Right.
And when you add the receivable to the actual account that we pay the payroll, it ends up in a positive balance. So,
But from my interpretation of what you told me, you would be billing a vendor, wouldn't you, for detail? So is there only certain detail that we'll do so that we don't have to go back after the money? And I'm thinking someone says, I want an officer for detail. You say that's going to cost $75. You're going to bill that person because they're going to be paying us, the city of or town of Auburn, for the detail. We get that, we put it in the agency account, then we pay the officer.
no, it works just the opposite. We pay the officer first because we don't know how long the officer is going to be out there conducting the detail. Because it could be 4 hours. If it's over 4 hours, sometimes they get a 6 hour, 8 hour block of time. It's contractually set. So until the job is complete, we don't know how much to bill the vendor until it comes through the payroll.
Okay.
So if the vendor happens to be the town itself, so let's say there was a need for a detail at one of the schools, how would that work?
I'm sorry, Diane, if there was a detail for the town for what location?
At a school, perhaps.
Well, so I was just saying for one of the schools, let's say there was an incident or they felt that there was a need to have a detail for a period of time at one of the schools, which would make the town
The town would be the paying agent, yes. So for
and
instance.
so it would just go under overtime?
No, it wouldn't come out of the overtime. So for instance, I'm going to give you an example that I'm recently aware of. During COVID, they had traffic problems at the intermediate school on Bryn Mawr. And because buses weren't running and parents were driving their kids in, it created a traffic nightmare. The school department decided that they wanted some details to control traffic flow. As a result of that, the school department actually paid for those details out of their operating budget.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Mr. Casanova. Any other questions? Mr. Yeah, you all set? Okay, so what we can do now is, hearing no other questions, we can vote on a recommendation on the police budget, and then we can go look at the police CIP. Okay, so repeating, let's see, the current fiscal 2022 police budget, $5,015,022. The amount requested, $5,080,225. That's a 1.3% increase, or an increase of $65,203. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Second, okay, so all in favor, and this is where I do the roll call. All in favor, Kevin,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. So that's passed. So now we're going to look at the capital budget for the police department. And my first question is, tell me about vehicles, and how many vehicles are we turning over each year?
It's on a cycle
Yep.
of, it varies by each year. And obviously the prices of those are going up dramatically as well,
Yeah.
especially the upfitting part of it. Next year for '23 is a 3-vehicle year. And then it reverts, I believe, in '24, it goes back to a 4. So as of right now, the vehicles are, I mean, again, we're still awaiting delivery right now on vehicles that were ordered in August or July. We still haven't received delivery of those. So we're doing everything we can to make that happen as quickly as possible. But I think it's a problem that's being seen by police departments, fire departments, and any municipality, all municipalities. So, but we'll do our best to get those ordered as quickly as we can, and we've already made some contacts we've actually spread it out to not just one vendor. We're trying to attract as many vendors as we can just to get it done so we can get the vehicles on hand. And by and large, our fleet is actually in really good shape because we have been able to acquire these vehicles and spread out the usage as far as how many officers are assigned to each vehicle.
Okay, thank
Did that
you.
answer your question?
Yeah, it does, I think. And Mr. Kazanovich, did you want to add anything?
Sure, Madam Chair, I just want to reiterate what the lieutenant just communicated to the Finance Committee. We've been on a 3-3-4 cycle for a number of years. So the year that the 4th vehicle is earmarked in the CIP reflects historically what was committed to in the chief's contract by replacing that vehicle and putting that vehicle back into the line of service. Certainly, this is something that we're going to have to keep an eye on and potentially adjust as a result of supply and demand. As you know, the cost of vehicles are going up. How long that's going to last, we don't know, but certainly we may have to make an amendment to that in the fall, or even in the future years as a result of the global economy. It's very difficult to get vehicles now.
Yep.
I think the deputy chief of the fire department will attest to you. To get an ambulance, historically it was a year. It's now maybe up to 18 months to 2 years to get an ambulance. So we're trying to order these in advance. If it's committed in the CIP, we may be looking to do that because I think the chief and the lieutenant will tell you it's very tough to get vehicles now.
Yep.
So it's putting in a hardship on the department.
Thank you, Mr. Kazanovich. Okay, any other questions about the CIP? No, Diane? Michael, any questions on the CIP?
No.
All set.
Also, thank you. Okay, so what we'll do with the CIP is, once we've talked to all the departments, we'll vote on a total number for the CIP. Thank you. Any
Madam
other?
Chair, one other comment.
Yes.
I just want to draw attention to a line item in 2024 for HVAC,
I saw that. Yeah.
450,000.
Yep,
If by chance ARPA money is earmarked for those upgrades and improvements, we would be removing that at a later date.
okay, great. And when is the decision being made on how the ARPA money is being spent?
Julie, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the Board of Selectmen kept the hearing open to resume May 23rd, but they're willing to consider any ARPA use for something that may come up between now and then.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, any other questions for provisional chief, provisional deputy chief? I think we're all set. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in tonight. Thank you very much.
Very much.
Have a good evening.
Thank you as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Okay, so now I'd like to welcome our fire department being represented by Deputy Glenn Johnson. How do you do?
Good evening, how's everybody?
Good, we're good, we're good. And let's see, I've got your budget here. Do you want to give us an overview first? Make any comments?
Sure, I think you guys have known, we've spoken many times, another record-breaking year for the Auburn Fire Rescue Department. Extremely busy. Just recently, we have a staffing study underway through ARPA, and we currently got approval at the Board of Selectmen's meeting the other night for some impact shifts, which are some temporary shifts to run a third ambulance to help with the call volume that's going on and the call volume increase. Those are the big, I guess, the big things that are going on non-budget related right now.
Okay. When would those impact shifts, when would that start?
The impact shift started on Tuesday,
Okay.
so today is the second day of having those. And it's already worked out very well so far.
Okay, good. And that's the salaries are paid with ARPA money.
Correct. It's at overtime for the current firefighters right now and paid through ARPA.
Will the ARPA money cover the extra supplies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. We did supplies and salaries with the ARPA money.
Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So let's see, let me read off the bottom line number for the fire department. The fiscal 2022 appropriation is $3,570,525. The department request is $3,652,231, which is a 2.29% increase, while the town manager recommendation is less than that. It's $3,641,407. So let's look at our first, the first section, that the chief's and deputy chief, information, administrative assistant, and I see secretary. Is this a new position?
Yes, I was going to explain that too.
Sure.
It is a new position that we proposed. Currently, it would be starting in April of next fiscal year. And that is to, currently at this time, our secretary, Maureen, who's great, she's at the end of her career. She's going to be retiring soon. She gets, 5 weeks of vacation and other time off. During that time, when she's out, we currently have nobody that's able to cover her. And at this day and age, I believe that somebody should be there at the fire department all the time in order to answer the phone during business hours, take permits, whatever it may be. So this new position would be working under the fire prevention division, which they could use the help on that side with having an administrative assistant. It is currently budgeted at a part-time position. We would like to see it full-time at some point. Whenever it could happen, it would be great. And then ultimately, that person would cover when Maureen's out on vacation, so that somebody is always there to answer the phones at the department, take in permits, and do the necessary business that we have.
So and then when Maureen retires, you'll hire someone for that role?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So this represents how many months, how much salary? So April, May, June, is that just 3 months' salary, 2 months?
Yes, it was per the clerk's bargaining agreement.
Okay,
That's what we went off of.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
Just
Yep.
relative, so that we do see I think that's where we're seeing most of our difference between the department's recommendation and the town manager's recommendation. Is that, is it based on the number of hours that we're
We had, we also got cut in the equipment repair. Town manager cut $1,000 from there, and $500 from professional development, so there's some difference there. We did increase some line items, as you noticed in there. One was the increase for my salary. Then there was an increase for technology support, which those are licenses for the ambulance software and other reporting software that we have. In the training line item, we did a little merger there. We moved some money around. If you see, we just relabeled it. So under the professional development, it looks like it grew quite a bit, but it actually is just moving the money for their EMT license certifications and continuing education. We put it up there. We felt it would fit better there, or it's a better description of what the actual money is. Then going down into the overtime, you'll notice there's a reduction in the actual overtime line item, but there's a new line item for training overtime. And traditionally, in the past, what we've tried to do is we've tried to do all our overtime on shift as much as we can. With the call volume the way it is, you'll try to do a training that's supposed to take about 30 minutes, and it ends up taking 4 or 5 hours throughout the day. And it's very difficult to get some of these larger trainings in that we'd like to do, and some combined evolutions, which are essential to the guys to maintain their skills. So moving this 27,000 over to overtime for training would allow us to bring them in every once in a while and have them do some off-duty training. So therefore, they wouldn't be interrupted with the calls. We also had the educational line item for the firefighters, that's contractual obligation. That was an increase this year and per their contract. The medical director for our medical direction comes out of UMass Hospital. They've increased their rates, and we suspect they're going to continue to increase their rates, is what we've been told. Also, there's a small increase in the protective gear equipment, just based on our 3-year average, just to reflect it better. At that point, that's what we seem to be spending. And then the medical supplies line item, we increased, one, due to running more ambulances, 2, more calls, we're using more supplies, and as you know, I've been before you before for transfers into the medical supply line item. And those are, I think, the big items.
Gentlemen, any questions about that?
My question just sort of briefly relative to the secretary's position, and I applaud you for looking forward. Too many times we see folks retire and their knowledge and expertise is out the door before we have any sort of plan.
Be lost without Mo right now.
Yes, and Maureen has done a great job for a long time. But do you envision that secretary's position, I guess, are we creating another position, or are we just creating a temporary buffer to bring them in? And just as a second part of that,
I foresee it as having the 2 positions permanently. I mean, similar to the police department, they have multiple secretaries. The DPW has multiple secretaries. We do warrant the work and have the work between the fire prevention, the code enforcement side, as well as the regular general operations, administrative, paying bills, and everything else. So.
and I was going to ask that as the second part of the CFO. Are those, everything you described, a lot of those tasks you just described under inspections and code, and do those generate fees, and could the salaries be offset by some of those fees that come in for, do we charge for inspections? And
We do charge for inspections. Is it enough to warrant a position? Probably not. I'd have to do some further investigation into that, unless you know what we're doing.
I would also say that you have a top step administrative assistant. When this individual retires, you're going to bring someone in at the lower step, so you're going to have a substantial savings there. So I think between that and the new position, it's not going to be that much more of a commitment in terms of budgetary dollars. But I can tell you that you know, when Mo is out, it does create a problem in terms of payroll, in terms of AP, in terms of just day-to-day administrative functions. You're actually now having a firefighter assigned to some of those duties when he or she should be out responding to calls or things of that nature. So it does create a.
If she's out for a long period of time, a week or a little over, if she takes a week and a half or something for vacation, I will fill it at overtime for a firefighter to answer the phones. But to be honest, that's really as good as they are, is answering the phones. They can take in some general permits, but they can't pay the bills. They don't understand that side of the operation. It's completely different for them. And even some of the permits are a little bit more elaborate that they deal with to try to help out with fire prevention. So those guys, that's not their area of expertise. They try, but.
And I gotta tell you, this discussion has been ongoing for 3 years now, and we're trying to find an opportunity to weave it in. And I also want to let the finance committee know, whether it's the police department budget, the fire department budget, the contractual considerations for the union contracts that are about to expire on June 30th are not in here. So we're trying to keep that in mind as well. We did provide for a sum of money in the salary and wage reserve account, and you can see, we don't know what that impact is gonna be. We try to provide a sum of money that would be hopefully adequate to meet our contractual obligations. But at the same time, cognizant of the fact that we have to keep a limit on the operational growth as well. Keeping in mind with inflationary factors and all that is something new to the equation, because we weren't faced with that prior to October. Inflation started running rampant in October at a rate of 5%, 6%, 7%. Seems to be climbing. And that's going to have a definite impact on everyone's operational side of the budget. So that's something we're going to have to deal with as we move along.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm sorry, on that still, do we see, we've had a lot of discussions about this HR director and the future of that. Positions like this, when they develop job descriptions, and if they're in the same bargaining group, do we see on how their job descriptions are written? For instance, if the DPW has 2 secretaries on and the fire department doesn't, and their job descriptions are matched, again, it would probably be a contractual thing, but, you know, instead of paying a firefighter on overtime to answer the phones, you know, have some cross-training that folks could benefit. And even in this position, you're a little bit of a disadvantage, correct me if I'm wrong, that fire prevention and their offices are primarily at West Street, whereas your phones and walk-in for permits are at the headquarters. So, I mean, it's just a current setup of where the office space is, but, and I'm sure that person will overcome. They'll have to drive down, all the way down the street to Harvard Street to answer the phones that day, or put a permit, give out permits, but, yeah, I was just curious.
I'd suspect in the future, if we were able to get that clerk's position full-time, at that point, I would move fire prevention permits to Station 2. So that everything on that side was there, and then Mo would deal with the administration side more. So just to make things easier, and I think it would flow better that way. Then that person wouldn't have to be going back and forth as much.
Question? Michael, Diane, do you have any questions?
No.
I had one question.
Okay.
You mentioned that the professional development line looked like a big increase, but was an offset of a cost somewhere else. But I don't actually see any other lines that have decreased anywhere near that amount. So I'm just curious where that offset's coming from, because it does look, just from reviewing it again, like a pretty significant increase to the overall cost.
It was decreased somewhere for around 37,000. Yeah. The one that was, that's down to 8,400. Well, 45, yeah.
Yeah, from 84 to 45.
He wants to see where the other line item is, where it came out of.
For the manager's recommendation to get us 90,000.
Sorry, I can't.
So
I didn't catch that.
he's looking for it. He and Mr. Kazanovich and Deputy Johnson are reviewing the budget and just seeing where that offset came from.
So isn't it in the firefighters' education? So it's for fiscal 22, that's 300, and then there's the 37 down at training. where you have the 300 in fiscal 23, and then, so the 37 kind of offsets up to the 45, right?
Isn't it the overtime line?
No, well, you're talking two different things. The overtime line did go down
And that-
because we took 27,000 over to training. I think it was, the 27,000 for training. The other part did come out of, I believe it was training here.
No, I'm seeing a $27,000 reduction out of overtime, a $10,000 reduction out of training.
Right.
And the offset would be the increase in professional development from 8,400 to 45,000.
Okay. So it's coming out of the 5130 and
Yes,
511134.
yes.
Okay, yeah, there, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Michael. So I had a couple of questions. I see so the department request for the secretary is $18,648, but the town manager recommendation is $9,324. And tell me again, why is there that difference?
We were going to start at January 1st. and,
Okay.
Town administration would like to start it in April instead.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just wanted to, after listening to you speak for a while, I just wanted to echo Kevin's point that when I saw a position being removed, one of the things that I think of is there really a plan in place when individuals within your department are taking time off that can reduce overtime or some tasks can be put aside until they come back. And then also reiterating cross-training, especially if the skill set and the time are being done by a participant in another department that might have, acting more as a team rather than an island and within some of our departments and seeing more cross-training and more overlap so that people can route calls or help out just to minimize the amount of juggling of work you'd be doing as a leader in trying to fill all of that. Just an observation, but Kevin sort of made that. I just wanted to echo it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions about the ambulance account.
Sure.
And the receipts. The billing is still handled by an outside agency, correct?
Correct, Comstar.
Homestar. And, what's the collection rate?
The collection rate with insurance companies is 88.9%. And for the people that are self-pay, right now, 11.92%, which is it's a very minimal part of our population that is self-pay.
Okay. And, what was the, I guess I wanted to know what the receipts have been.
Last year, we brought in $1,699,863. Just call it 124. Okay. 1.7.
Okay. And are we on pace to equal that amount this year?
We are above that. Right now, we're at 1.5.
Okay,
So we are moving along.
okay. And, okay. How much of that will be spent, will, be put towards this year's budget?
Towards 1,075,000, I believe, off the top of my head. Yep. 1,075,000. Currently, you'll notice we did 300,000 last year out of it for the ambulance, like 2 years in a row, due to the fact that the ambulances are taking approximately 2 years to come in.
Yep.
So our replacement plan, and not to jump to capital early, but our replacement plan is every 2 years for an ambulance. We are maintaining 4. We did get a little bit behind because of COVID on waiting for those ambulances to come in, and because of that, that was creating some mechanical issues with the ambulances running more than they normally would over their lifespan. But now we're slowly catching up with that. Now that one new ambulance is in, the other ambulance has already been ordered, but we will not see that for probably another 16 months.
So you did get receipts. I remember last year you were waiting for an ambulance
Yes, we received that ambulance in
Okay.
December.
in December, and now you're waiting on one.
We're waiting on another one so that it comes in time to meet the capital, so we can get ourselves back on track.
So you kind of ordered early a
Yes.
little bit, that, which makes sense, yes.
We ordered early, but we don't pay for it till delivery. so
Right, okay, that
we
makes
Had the
sense.
money appropriated early.
Okay. Have you seen an increase, in, mutual aid in ambulances going out of town?
I'd say yes, we've seen an increase going out, but we have an increase coming in. It's kind of if you look across the state, you'll notice that everybody's call volume is up. So at this point, everybody's trying to help each other out.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, questions?
I guess I do have another one relative to staffing. I know Chief Coleman often comes in and
Sure.
has a vision for additional positions. Where are we?
I'm glad you brought that up. I did mean to discuss that. So we did not put any positions in for staffing. We would like more staffing. We believe it is warranted. However, we do have the study going on actively. So we felt at this point it wasn't appropriate to put in staffing until we get the results of the staffing study for that. We did apply for a SAFER grant, and that SAFER grant, we applied for 12 people. If we get that, the federal government will pay 100% of their salaries and benefits for 3 years.
Wow,
So it's a little different than the current SAFER grant that we have now. We're on the third year of that SAFER grant that we currently have, which we have 2 employees under. And at this point, the town's responsible for 65% of that.
When we accept something like that, it should have come through for those 12. That doesn't necessarily mean we're increasing our staffing forever at 12, right? Or would it sort of balance at some point? Would there be
We would,
because it's not,
if we took the SAFER grant, the intention would be to increase the staffing by 12. So that would run from 9 guys a shift to 12 guys a shift. And then that would allow the minimum, because you have time off, that would allow the minimum to be around 9. So that's where we'd look to run. Now with the SAFER grant, technically, yes, you do not have to keep them. But that's not what the SAFER grant's designed for. It's designed to get you 3 years paid for, develop a plan so that you're able to keep them. But I think ideally what we're looking for is whatever the staffing study comes back at, is to look at through town administration, how can we develop a plan to get to where we need to be, and take their recommendations and see what they have to say.
and the reason I say that is not that I don't think you need it operationally. It's
Sure.
It kind of builds on our discussion of last week, which is, it's not what we want for the current employees and current salaries. It's that bigger looming number that comes at the retirement end, and that they're forever is a number that goes along with those positions. So it's
Absolutely.
more on that. And I guess relative to Ann's a little bit on mutual aid. I think Auburn's in a little bit of a different position that I think we're far and above some of the other Worcester suburbs, at least on the western side, in terms of
So we do,
staffing.
we get, for having staffing to
I
be
think,
called?
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you certainly know where the other communities are, but I know, from my experience, communities like the Graftons and the Millburys that are still running call fire departments, are we in essence by our, looking forward, almost supporting those towns?
I wouldn't say so that we're supporting those towns. I think we're able to try to answer our call volume. If you look at our call volume compared to Millbury, we're a lot higher. I think just if you look at the demographics and where we sit and how we sit in geographically as well, and then bordering the city of Worcester, and we're on the south side of Worcester, and the south side of Worcester is also the busier side of Worcester, in that I don't use it in a bad way, but it overflows into Auburn. That keeps our call volume moving. In Millbury's definitely slower that way. We are busier, and as you go out west towards Oxford, they're a little slower than us, but their call volume is picked up as well. I know they're putting on some more people to try to get their staffing where it should be, and their staffing is definitely understaffed for what they're running. You look at, Holden is, kind of towards the north of the city, but they've added a bunch of people on. They stay fairly busy going mutual aid into the city. And then Leicester's currently going through some issues as far as with their call volume and restructuring and their whole department. But We are busier just due to the makeup of the town. And, you know, I've had this conversation and I've said it to many people. And you look at Auburn and you look at the changes and some people will say, well, is your call volume up because of COVID? It's a yes and a no. The way I look at it, society has completely changed. Over the years, we've been taught, and I taught the public education in town for, I don't know, for 15 years probably or more. But we taught the kids from a very young age, you want to call 911 if you have a problem. This is what you need to do. And we've got that out to society. Call 911 if you need help. In the olders, I'll use it like my grandfather and them. He wouldn't call 911 if he had chest pain. He wouldn't call. He'd be like, I'll sleep it off. It'll be fine. We've gone through these efforts, and these are very good efforts, and we want people to get their care early. But to a degree, teaching everyone to call 911 and ask for help, we are now seeing the generations that are asking for help. We haven't had that in the older generations, and now it's starting to come true, and you're starting to see the effects of your work of educating the community. And we've started educating these children from preschool on. So they are now, all the kids that I taught are now adults, and they all, you know, understand how to dial 911, and people understand that if you need an emergency and you need health care quickly, you call an ambulance. And I think you see that as part of the societal change. The other part of it is with COVID, you have more people that are working from home. They're not going to be going back to work. Some of them, they'll be working from home. So you have a population during the day of the town of Auburn that swells to about 40,000 during the day on a normal non-COVID day. And other people go to work, and Auburn's built up of a lot of warehouses and industrial type work in car dealerships, banks. All these people come to work. But now you have all the people that come into work to Auburn in the industrial area, but you also have all the people that are staying home from COVID that would commute into Boston or to the other places, and they're at home. And because they're at home, if they need help or an emergency, they're now calling. So I look at it as a societal change as far as the increase in the call volume, and I don't see it going away. And to battle it, one of the things we need to do is increase the staffing, in my opinion, but we'll see what the staffing study comes out, and that's the benefit of having a professional agency come out and evaluate your whole operation and see what they have to say. So that's kind of a long.
No. And do we, I guess, just back to my question briefly, do you have numbers for mutual aid out compared to mutual aid in, or just?
Yeah, they're usually about 20 calls difference. I don't see many. Let's see if I have it on this one. Mutual aid given 492 calls given overall to everybody. So, and some of that includes, which kind of skews the number going out, but some of that includes the FIU team when we have Captain Warren goes out to investigate fires for part of the District 7. So that's considered a mutual aid call. So that kind of throws that number off.
2 engines and an
right.
ambulance, it could be an
Yes.
investigator. So.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Yes?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. Diane, any questions?
No, thank you.
And Michael, any questions?
Most of that, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, so, we have a town manager recommendation of, on the fire department, $3,641,407. That's a decrease of $10,824 to fiscal 2022, or a 0.3% decrease. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
A motion to recommend the town manager's recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. So we've got a motion and a second. So, we're gonna do a roll call. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that is passed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, we do want to look at the CIP now.
Sure.
So, have you ordered you've ordered the new, we're not paying for the new ambulance until 16 months from now?
Correct.
Estimated time of arrival. Okay.
Correct.
So it wouldn't be in fiscal '23.
Nope, but it's been ordered.
Yep.
Just to meet the obligation to get it. But we're replacing the chief's vehicle, a fire prevention vehicle, and we already just discussed the ambulance and Marine 2, the boat. Which currently, if we can with the boat, we'll try Homeland Security, see if we can maybe get that covered.
Yep.
And then if we can, we'll readjust the capital.
And that would be a grant through Homeland Security?
Yes.
Okay. And what happens to the chief's vehicle and the deputy chief's vehicle?
Sure, so the chief's vehicle will go down to currently the EMS coordinator position that we recently hired. He'll be using that vehicle. And then my current vehicle ends up going down to the K-9, so that he'll have that vehicle. And then we're going to put the fire prevention vehicle into the pool vehicle, so we have a vehicle for people to take to the academy or wherever they need to go.
Okay. All right, any other questions on the CIP? Michael or Diane, any questions on the CIP?
No, thank you.
Okay, so we'll vote on, you might have heard me say this earlier, we'll vote in the CIP in its entirety at the end of the budget process. Can I just ask one question, though? You mentioned the SAFER grants that would pay for 12 employees. What's the time frame on those?
We expect to hear on the SAFER grants sometime in September, maybe August, as early as August, but it'd be sometime around September, October is our anticipation.
And what are the odds? Do we look good for it, or what?
I think it's slimmer this year, and that's because FEMA looks at regions and grants, and they focused a lot on the Northeast recently, and they've since shifted out. Not saying it's not possible, but
Yep.
it's not as likely.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, thank you very much,
You're
Deputy
welcome.
Chief Johnson.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Welcome. Okay, all set? Oh, are you doing, you going to talk about the EMS,
Yeah.
emergency management? Or we're just going to talk with Ms. Kazanovich about that?
That was
Okay,
just going to be it.
it is?
That's just
it?
it, yeah.
It's him. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
You're
Have a good
welcome to
night.
stay if you want.
Yeah, you can stay.
Moral support.
It's still early. Yeah, you can stay, yeah. All right, so we're looking, thank you. We're looking at emergency management. The fiscal 2022 appropriation was $17,500, and the department requests and the town manager recommendation are the same, $17,500. Does anyone have any questions on this budget?
I just have a question about the increase in overtime. The reason, is it goes from 22,099.
That's the three-year
Oh,
average.
that's level.
It goes from, oh, I'm sorry. I did that again. I took the 3-year average. That's like in the worst place for me. Because
So
it's
just to
right
give you an explanation for that, because I know it's level funded, but it was an increase over the 3-year average. We were not, or putting more of a focus on preventive maintenance on our generators. So we have our fleet mechanic going out and working on all of our generators, just to make sure that they're running and there are no glitches with it. So they're I want to say they're quarterly tested and maintained, and that's on an overtime basis. So we've had some problems in the past when we had some failures, and we want to make sure that when we're relying on our generators to work, that they're working.
Thank you, Ms. Kaplan. I remember making transfers into that account, reserve fund transfers. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Just relative to the whole department, who are our directors, deputy directors? Are they other town employees that fill these roles
So
aside?
Eric Audison is our director, former captain for the fire department. And I'm not sure about deputy right now. I think the deputy may be vacant. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, he would be our backup, or
Michael or Diane, do you have any questions about the emergency management budget?
No, I don't.
Okay. So the emergency management budget, town recommendation for fiscal year 2023 is $17,500. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
And a second, thank you. So we're going to do a roll call. All in favor, Kevin,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Patrick,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and Diane,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, so that one's all set. Were there any others that we were going to look at tonight, Mr. Kazanovich? That was it. Okay, so next week on March 23rd, the town clerk will be in and talk about her department and the elections department. Then the Department of Public Works will come in. It has many different divisions. Mr. Kazanovich, could I ask, could you send us a update on the balances in, OPEB and stabilization? Our Packagug account, retained earnings. We have three departments with retained earnings, right? 3 enterprise accounts?
Yes.
Maybe those, and free cash, please. If we, all right, thank you. If we want to look at the recap sheet for fiscal 2022, is that available online? Divisional local?
It is through DOR, but I can provide a copy.
Thank you, all right. All right, any other questions? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.